For 95% of our history, humans left no cities, no pyramids, no books, just stone tools, cave paintings, and silence. And yet, we've had the same brain, the same hands, the same intelligence for over 300,000 years. So why does the story of civilization only begin 5,000 years ago? Some researchers believe humanity may have lived through a kind of historical amnesia, that something extraordinary happened around 12,000 years ago, erasing much of what came before. This is the ancient code, and these are 10 compelling clues that a lost advanced civilization may have once walked the earth and vanished. If we truly have the same intelligence today as we did 300,000 years ago, then why did it all begin so late? Why the silence? Why the delay? To answer that, we begin with the first major clue. Not something buried deep in the ground, but something that suddenly appeared all across the world. Sumer, Egypt, the Indus Valley, ancient China. Around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, they all appear, almost as if someone flipped a switch. These weren't primitive huts by the river. These were full-blown civilizations arriving with astronomy, mathematics, written language, advanced agriculture, legal codes, spiritual frameworks, as if the blueprint had already been drawn. Mainstream history teaches that this was the natural result of thousands of years of gradual development. From hunter-gatherers to farmers, then to builders of cities. But here's the problem. That steady curve doesn't quite match the archaeological data. What we see instead is a sudden spike, a leap, a civilizational Big Bang. Take Sumer, for example, one of the first societies to develop cuneiform writing, advanced irrigation, codified laws, and even astronomy. Or Egypt, whose earliest pyramids and temples still baffle modern engineers. Or the Indus Valley, where cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were designed with sewage systems and standardized brickwork. Before Rome was even a dream. These cultures didn't rise in isolation. They emerged in parallel, across thousands of miles, with strangely similar ideas and mythological echoes. But why then? Why not sooner? After all, modern humans, with the same brain, same hands, same potential, have existed for over 300,000 years. That's thousands of generations with no cities, no writing, no monumental architecture, just stone tools, cave art, and silence. Some researchers describe this as a kind of great forgetting, the possibility that humanity may have lived through entire chapters of history now lost to time. If we had the hardware for civilization for hundreds of thousands of years, why did we only start using it 5,000 years ago? What were we doing all that time? Could it be that we're not the first advanced culture to walk the earth, but the survivors of the last one? Consider this. Around 12,800 years ago, a global cataclysm marked the end of the last ice age, known as the Younger Dryas. In a flash, megafauna went extinct. Climates changed, coastlines vanished under rising seas. And soon after, civilization bloomed. Was that timing just coincidence? Some point to Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, a megalithic site older than Stonehenge by 6,000 years, built by supposed hunter-gatherers with no agriculture, no pottery, and no written language, yet aligning precisely with celestial events. Its sophistication suggests knowledge that didn't slowly evolve, but arrived ready. This leads to a radical idea. What if these ancient sites, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, weren't the beginning but the restart? What if the knowledge they carried wasn't invented from scratch but inherited? Think of it like this. If a civilization were destroyed today and survivors had to rebuild from the ashes, how long before computers returned? How long before written language came back? The answers: maybe never, unless fragments of memory, tools, and teaching survived the fire. There's growing evidence that something may have come before us and vanished. What we call the first civilizations may just be the first we remember. Across North America, Europe, and the Middle East, archaeologists have found something strange buried beneath the earth. A dark, soot-stained layer no thicker than a human hand. Compressed into ancient soil, it lies silent, but its message is explosive. This mysterious layer, sometimes called the black mat, is rich in burnt organic matter, microscopic spherules of melted glass, rare elements like iridium, and perhaps most intriguing of all, nano-diamonds. Found at dozens of unrelated sites and dated to approximately 12,800 years ago, this layer marks the start of a period known to scientists as the Younger Dryas. A sudden and dramatic return to Ice Age conditions just as the Earth was beginning to warm. Some researchers believe this black mat could be the smoking gun of a cataclysm, possibly triggered by fragments of a disintegrating comet or asteroid exploding in the atmosphere. This idea, known as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, has been explored in multiple peer-reviewed studies. Proponents suggest that fiery airbursts may have sparked continent-wide wildfires, caused sudden flooding, and plunged the Earth into chaos, wiping out megafauna and resetting the course of human history. The physical evidence is certainly curious. At sites like Murray Springs in Arizona, a clear layer of scorched sediment has been identified containing signs of high-temperature events, including materials that normally only form under extreme pressure or heat. Still, this remains a controversial hypothesis. Many scientists argue that the data is incomplete or that alternate explanations, such as volcanic activity or regional environmental shifts, could account for the findings. No universally accepted crater has been identified to confirm a single impact. Yet the consistency of this black layer, stretching across thousands of miles and found in such different environments, keeps the theory alive. The presence of impact proxies like nano-diamonds and melt glass continues to raise important questions about what really happened around 12,800 years ago. And there's something else. This date doesn't just mark geological disturbance, it coincides with the abrupt end of the Clovis culture in North America, the extinction of many large Ice Age animals, and massive shifts in global climate patterns. Is it all just coincidence? Or is this dark layer the burned fingerprint of a forgotten cosmic catastrophe? One that may have reshaped the Earth and erased entire chapters of the human story. The jury is still out, but for those exploring Earth's deepest mysteries, this strange black veil in the soil remains a powerful and unsettling clue. Whatever happened around 12,800 years ago, whether cosmic, climatic, or both, the consequences were enormous. Soon after the ice began to melt, seas rose with terrifying speed, and entire landscapes vanished beneath the waves. This leads us to our third clue, a flood so vast it redrew the very shape of the continents, and may have drowned everything humanity once built. Roughly 11,600 years ago, the Earth changed fast. In a matter of centuries, possibly less, sea levels surged by more than 20 meters. Massive ice sheets, once covering much of North America and Europe, began melting at an accelerated pace. The oceans rose, coastlines vanished, and an ancient world was drowned. Scientists refer to this event as Meltwater Pulse 1b, a dramatic and well-documented spike in sea levels near the end of the last ice age. Unlike gradual melting over millennia, this was sudden, marked by powerful glacial discharges and global flooding. It's confirmed by ice core data, sediment analysis, and submerged geological formations around the world. And while the event itself is not disputed, the implications are still unfolding. Here's the question some researchers ask: if early human cultures existed before this flood, where would they have lived? The answer seems obvious: near water, rivers, lakes, coastlines. But what if those coastlines are now hundreds of feet underwater? After all, most major civilizations in known history, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, all grew near water. It's reasonable to assume early cultures did the same. But if those people built settlements, traveled by sea, or even developed forms of trade and knowledge, their traces could now lie beneath the waves. Along many continental shelves, sonar has revealed ancient riverbeds, stone formations, and submerged land bridges that once connected distant lands. In places like the Doggerland region of the North Sea, underwater archaeology has confirmed that entire landscapes, once forested and inhabited, are now lost to the ocean. And then there's the timing. Meltwater Pulse 1b aligns almost perfectly with the end of the Younger Dryas, the same mysterious cooling period associated with the black mat layers, the disappearance of the Clovis culture, and the extinction of megafauna. In other words, it fits into a larger puzzle. Could it be that some advanced or semi-advanced cultures existed along these now vanished coasts, and were simply erased by rising seas? We haven't found definitive proof of ancient cities beneath the oceans, not yet. But the tools for such exploration are just beginning to evolve. And with so much of Earth's ancient shoreline now underwater, it's possible we've only scratched the surface of what came before. Meltwater Pulse 1b is real. What it may have taken with it remains one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of all time. There's a story that echoes across every continent. A story told in temples, scrolls, songs, and sacred fires, passed down through generations, etched into the memory of humanity. It goes like this. Once, long ago, the world was nearly destroyed. A great flood rose from the depths, the skies wept, the earth drowned, and only a few survived, to begin again. From the highlands of Peru to the plains of Mesopotamia, from Polynesian islands to Arctic ice fields, cultures separated by oceans and millennia all tell of a world-ending deluge. They speak of divine wrath, sinking lands, floating arks, and rebirth after ruin. One of the oldest surviving flood accounts comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, a Mesopotamian text written over 4,000 years ago. It describes a God-sent flood, a boat built by a lone survivor named Utnapishtim, and the promise of renewal after devastation. Sound familiar? The biblical story of Noah's Ark in the book of Genesis follows a nearly identical arc. Warnings from the heavens, rising waters, a massive vessel, the survival of species, and the rebirth of civilization once the waters retreat. But these two aren't alone. Flood myths appear in Hindu texts, where the god Vishnu warns Manu of a coming deluge. In Mayan tradition, gods flood the world to erase flawed humans made of wood. In Aboriginal legends, water spirits rise to cleanse the land. Even among Native American tribes, stories persist of giant waves swallowing entire valleys. How is it that cultures who never met, separated by oceans and time, all share the same haunting memory? Some scholars in the field of comparative mythology, like Joseph Campbell and Mircea Eliade, have long explored this mystery. They argue that ancient oral traditions often preserve real events, encoded through symbols, metaphors, and gods. In other words, myths are not just stories, they may be memories. And now science is beginning to catch up. Geological records confirm that sea levels rose sharply around 11,600 years ago, just as the last ice age ended. This was the time of Meltwater Pulse 1b, that sudden and powerful flooding event likely caused by collapsing ice sheets and global warming. It's the same period associated with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, the extinction of large animals, and perhaps the loss of forgotten cultures along ancient coastlines. Could these flood stories, passed down by survivors over generations, be fragmented memories of a real planet-shaping event? A time when the oceans rose, the skies turned dark, and an older world was swept away? The answer remains uncertain, but when myth and geology converge, it's worth paying attention. Perhaps our ancestors weren't imagining destruction, perhaps they were remembering it. Imagine walking along a beach and realizing that just a few kilometers out beneath the surf lies the ghost of a city. Temples, roads, stone structures, all swallowed by the sea. Over the past few decades, divers, sonar scans, and satellite imagery have revealed anomalies scattered across the ocean floor. Formations that resemble walls, steps, pavements, and even entire enclosures. And here's the most intriguing part. Many of these sites lie right on the edges of ancient coastlines, submerged since the end of the last ice age. During the event known as Meltwater Pulse 1b, global sea levels rose by more than 20 meters in just a few centuries, and over 120 meters total as the last glacial ice melted. That's enough to drown entire landscapes and everything that once lived there. Take Dwarka off the coast of India, where underwater ruins have been found beneath layers of sediment with stone blocks, right angles, and what appear to be long submerged walls. Or Yonaguni near Japan, a massive stepped structure carved into the seafloor. Some believe it's a natural formation. Others aren't so sure. In Cuba, sonar scans revealed symmetrical shapes resembling streets and plazas, nearly 600 meters underwater. And in the North Sea, the region known as Doggerland was once a thriving landmass connecting Britain to Europe, now lost to the tides. Mainstream science acknowledges that entire human habitats may have been drowned after the Ice Age. But what if some of them were more than just villages? What if early civilizations, perhaps coastal traders, sea-based cultures, or even astronomer builders, were erased without a trace, lost beneath rising seas? We often search for ancient history on land, in deserts, mountains, and caves. But maybe the greatest secrets of our past lie underwater, unreachable for now. After all, more than 70% of Earth's surface is ocean, and only a tiny fraction of the seafloor has been mapped in detail. What might we find when we look deeper? Ancient underwater cities are not just legends, they are geological possibilities, archaeological provocations, and maybe, just maybe, they are waiting to be rediscovered. Scattered across the eastern United States lie thousands of mysterious oval-shaped depressions, shallow basins stretching from New Jersey to Florida. These formations, known as the Carolina Bays, have puzzled scientists for over a century. They vary in size, some just a few hundred feet across, others more than a mile wide. But what makes them truly strange is their shape and alignment. Each one is elongated and consistently oriented, as if something rained down from the sky at a sharp angle, striking the earth with incredible force. From above, they look like scars or craters softened by time. For decades, their origin was debated. Were they wind-formed, the result of glacial melting, or something else entirely? In recent years, a provocative hypothesis has re-emerged that these bays may be linked to a cosmic event, fragments of a disintegrating comet or asteroid exploding in the atmosphere around 12,800 years ago, near the onset of the Younger Dryas. This theory suggests that multiple airbursts, high-altitude explosions, rained shockwaves and debris over vast areas, scarring the landscape and triggering fires, floods, and climatic chaos. The orientation of the Carolina Bays, researchers argue, could reflect the direction of such blasts. And again, the timing is compelling. These features appear to align with the same Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. The same period marked by a sudden return to Ice Age conditions, mass extinction of megafauna, and abrupt cultural shifts across the globe. But here's the catch. No universally accepted impact crater has been found beneath the bays themselves. Many geologists argue that the bays are too shallow or too uniform to be true impact sites, and point instead to wind and water processes as their cause. Still, advocates of the impact theory note that airbursts, unlike solid object impacts, may not leave deep craters. Instead, they can generate shock waves powerful enough to reshape terrain, ignite wildfires, and launch molten debris, without a single visible crater. Supporting evidence includes similar oval-shaped depressions in Nebraska, Kansas, and even parts of the Midwest, all dated to roughly the same time period. Could the Carolina Bays be a geographical fingerprint of a fragmented cosmic bombardment? Could they mark the moment an ancient catastrophe reshaped not just the climate, but the human story itself? The debate continues, but one thing is certain. The Carolina Bays remain one of the most intriguing and underexplored anomalies on the North American landscape. Silent witnesses to a violent chapter we barely remember. Long before Columbus, before the Aztecs, or even the first pyramids, a mysterious people roamed North America. They were hunters, toolmakers, trailblazers. We call them the Clovis. Named after a site in New Mexico where their distinctive fluted stone spear points were first discovered, the Clovis culture spread rapidly across the continent. From the Great Plains to the eastern woodlands, their tools have been found in over 1,500 locations, a cultural footprint as wide as it is sudden. For decades, archaeologists believed Clovis represented the first human presence in the Americas, an idea now revised but still foundational to our understanding of prehistoric North America. But then, something strange happened. They vanished. Around 12,800 years ago, right at the onset of the Younger Dryas cooling period, Clovis artifacts disappear from the archaeological record. Not gradually, not over centuries, almost overnight. There's no clear evidence of migration, no signs of transformation into a different culture, just a silence in the soil. Why did a thriving society, one with tools spread across thousands of miles, suddenly vanish? Some researchers point to climate. The Younger Dryas brought a rapid and extreme return to glacial conditions, disrupting ecosystems across the Americas. Water sources dried, forests shifted, and prey animals vanished. Others suggest overhunting. Clovis hunters may have contributed to the extinction of megafauna like mammoths and mastodons, and with them their own food supply. But there's another theory, more dramatic and more controversial. It's called the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. The idea that fragments of a disintegrating comet struck Earth or exploded in the atmosphere, triggering continent-wide wildfires, climate collapse, and the mass extinction of animals and humans alike. The timing is striking. The disappearance of Clovis tools lines up exactly with other events from that era. The black mat layer found across multiple continents, the extinction of mammoths and saber-toothed cats, and the onset of sudden global cooling. Some impact theorists believe Clovis wasn't just a culture that faded, but a civilization that was wiped out. Still, many archaeologists remain cautious. They argue that other cultures, like Folsom or Dalton, may have evolved from Clovis groups, adapting their tools and lifestyles to new realities. But that still leaves the same question. Why the sudden break? Why the sharp line in time? Whether it was cosmic impact, climate chaos, or a perfect storm of events, the disappearance of the Clovis culture remains one of America's deepest prehistoric mysteries. And perhaps a clue that something much bigger was unfolding on a global scale. A reset that didn't just erase animals or landscapes, but memory itself. Just over 12,000 years ago, Earth was a very different place. It was wild, raw, and ruled by giants. Woolly mammoths roamed the tundras, mastodons thundered through ancient forests, giant ground sloths, towering short-faced bears, saber-toothed cats, all part of a lost bestiary that once defined the end of the Ice Age. But then, they vanished, not slowly. Not over tens of thousands of years, in the blink of a geological eye, they were gone. Across North America, Europe, Siberia, and even parts of South America, these massive creatures disappeared around the same moment in time, approximately 12,800 years ago. What could cause such a coordinated collapse of life on a planetary scale? Early theories blamed humans. The idea was simple. As people migrated into new territories, they overhunted these animals to extinction. But this explanation is starting to wear thin. While human hunting may have played a role, newer evidence points to something far more sudden and far more devastating. Around the same time as this extinction event, geologists have found layers of charcoal, soot, and melted materials buried beneath soil. signs of massive wildfires that swept across continents. These weren't ordinary forest fires, they were global-scale infernos, with signatures of intense heat, strange microspherules, and even nano-diamonds, elements often linked to high-energy impacts or airbursts in the upper atmosphere. Radiocarbon dating of these layers matches precisely with the start of the Younger Dryas. All elements suggest a single triggering event, a kind of planetary shockwave that reset ecosystems, altered weather systems, and shattered the balance of life. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. What else disappeared with them? If such a catastrophe could wipe out apex species across the globe, is it so hard to imagine that it might also have erased early human cultures, especially those living near vulnerable coasts, river valleys, or forests? No skeletal remains, no ruins, just ash, silt, and silence. Some researchers argue that our view of ancient humanity is limited, not because early civilizations didn't exist, but because we're looking in the wrong layer of time. And the extinction of the megafauna may be more than just a story of vanished beasts. It may be the smoking crater of a much deeper human loss. A forgotten reset that took more than animals with it. In the hills of southeastern Turkey, buried beneath layers of earth for thousands of years, lies a place that should not exist, at least not according to what we thought we knew. This is Göbekli Tepe, an archaeological site so ancient, so sophisticated that it has forced historians and archaeologists to rewrite entire chapters of human prehistory. Dating back more than 11,000 years, Göbekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years. It was built before the wheel, before writing, before even the advent of agriculture. In fact, when this monument was constructed, humanity was still officially in the Stone Age. But this is no crude structure. Massive T-shaped stone pillars, some weighing over 20 tons, and stand upright in circular enclosures. They are carved with intricate reliefs, foxes, scorpions, vultures, and abstract symbols. The arrangement is deliberate, the craftsmanship undeniable. Even more astonishing is the possibility that Göbekli Tepe was aligned with the stars. Some researchers, including those publishing in peer-reviewed astronomy journals, suggest that certain parts of the site may track celestial events, such as the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. One of its most enigmatic carvings, Pillar 43, also known as the Vulture Stone, appears to encode a sky chart. Some interpretations claim it may depict constellations and mark a date around 10,950 BCE, coinciding precisely with the onset of the Younger Dryas. If true, this would mean that the builders of Göbekli Tepe had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, symbolism, and perhaps even timekeeping, long before farming, writing, or cities officially existed. Dr. Klaus Schmidt, the lead archaeologist who spent years excavating the site, believed Göbekli Tepe was likely not a village, but a ritual center, possibly the world's first temple. He described it as a place built by organized hunter-gatherers who somehow mobilized labor, quarried stone, carved iconography, and engineered architecture with a level of planning no one thought possible for that era. But this leads to a profound question. How? How did people without agriculture sustain large enough groups to build such monuments? Where did the architectural knowledge come from? And why build it at all? Some propose that Göbekli Tepe wasn't the beginning, but a memory, a reconstruction, a monument built to preserve something far older. Others suggest it was a cultural convergence point, a sacred site where fragmented survivors of a past age gathered to remember, to worship, or to warn. What's most curious is this. After centuries of use, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, not abandoned, buried with care. Why would ancient builders entomb their masterpiece? Was it ritual, protection, or an effort to seal something away? Mainstream archaeology agrees on one thing. Göbekli Tepe is real and it changes everything. But what it truly means remains unknown. Was it the work of inspired hunter-gatherers, or the echo of a civilization we've forgotten? The Great Sphinx of Giza, silent, colossal, carved from a single mass of limestone, stands watch over the Egyptian desert. Officially, it was built around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. But the truth may go deeper, quite literally, and much, much older. If you look closely at the Sphinx, you'll see strange patterns carved into its body. Deep vertical fissures, wave-like undulations, and smoothed edges. But these don't match the signature of wind erosion, the kind expected in a dry desert climate. Instead, they look like something else entirely: water. Geologists have pointed out that the erosion on the Sphinx's enclosure resembles the effects of thousands of years of heavy rainfall, the kind that hasn't fallen on the Giza Plateau for at least 7,000 years, and possibly much longer. This raises a stunning possibility, that the Sphinx predates not just the pharaohs, but all of recorded history. Now imagine this. The Sahara wasn't always a desert. During the end of the last ice age, vast parts of North Africa were green and fertile. Rivers flowed, lakes shimmered, and wildlife thrived. It was a land of abundance. And if people lived there, they may have left traces that now lie buried under shifting sands and forgotten time. What's more, some researchers have shown that the Sphinx aligns almost perfectly with the rising sun on the spring equinox, a clear astronomical marker. And here's where it gets even stranger. If you rewind the sky back using astronomical software, the Sphinx, with its lion-shaped body would have aligned with the constellation of Leo, exactly around 10,500 BCE. Was this coincidence? Or was the Sphinx built during the age of Leo, not 4,500 years ago, but more than 12,000 years ago when the stars and the Earth aligned? Some scholars propose a scenario like this. An ancient, now lost civilization may have constructed the original lion-bodied monument during a much earlier epoch. Thousands of years later, dynastic Egyptians could have found it in ruins and recarved its head into the image of a pharaoh. In fact, the head of the Sphinx is strangely small compared to the body, almost as if it was reshaped from a much larger original. Surrounding the Sphinx are enormous stone blocks weighing tens of tons, forming the so-called Valley Temple and Sphinx Temple. These blocks were quarried from around the Sphinx itself, yet show signs of erosion and restoration. Some of the granite casing stones used to repair these temples appear to have been cut to fit already weathered surfaces, suggesting the core structure was ancient even to the ancient Egyptians. Taken together, The water erosion, astronomical alignments, and architectural anomalies. This points to a possibility too radical for many to accept, that the Sphinx may be a relic not of dynastic Egypt, but of a forgotten civilization, erased by time and cataclysm. Mainstream Egyptologists reject this theory, pointing to the lack of inscriptions or datable tools nearby. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially when dealing with a site that may have endured over 12,000 years of wind, sand, and silence. If the Sphinx is older than we think, then history may need rewriting, not just for Egypt, but for humanity as a whole. It would mean that advanced stonework, astronomical knowledge, and monumental construction existed long before our textbooks allow. Perhaps the Sphinx is not just a guardian of tombs, but a guardian of truth. One carved before history began and still whispering secrets through the scars etched into its ancient body. Whether you're a skeptic or a seeker, the clues are there, buried in ice, stone, myth, and mystery. Something extraordinary happened around 12,000 years ago, and it may have changed the course of human history forever. Could an advanced civilization have once walked the Earth only to be wiped out by catastrophe? We may never know the full story. But as new evidence continues to emerge, one thing is clear. The past may be far more mysterious than we've been taught. What do you think? Which clue surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. We read everyone. And if you want to keep exploring ancient mysteries, lost civilizations, and forbidden history, make sure to subscribe, because this journey is just getting started.